Hi there, welcome to The Public Interest. This is a program produced by the Ministry of the Presidency that allows for the media to engage with the President to discuss matters that are of national importance. As always, we have with us President David Granger. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
And he will be taking questions this week from Ravin Singh from the Guyana Chronicle and Royden James from Nightly News. Welcome, gentlemen. Sir, in our discussions today, we have to talk about the parking meter situation.
You have to?
It is a hot button situation hot button issue in the city, and just tell us, what is your government's position?
Well, my government's position is that the municipality is a body which was elected by the citizens of Georgetown. As you know, when the coalition partners were in opposition, we campaigned for local democracy. Elections were held, and as far as we're concerned, the citizens of Georgetown elected persons they felt fit and proper to run the affairs of the city. The city, unfortunately, is short of revenue. The city boundaries were extended several years ago, and it simply does not have enough money to run the affairs of the city, and they need to get money through taxation. So the government regards the parking meters as a legitimate means of getting taxes to run the city's affairs. We use roads, we see the canals, we enjoy certain facilities, and these things have to be paid for. The second aspect is that there is some degree of congestion in the city. It's a national capital, and it is felt that by the use of parking meters in certain areas, the congestion would be reduced. And so the government is not against the notion of parking meter project, but the government felt that we discussed it in cabinet. I met the mayor and the town clerk as recently as Wednesday, and we felt that there needed to be more consultation, more communication, and the arrival at a more consensual solution. And we did not overrule the council, but we called on the council to re-engage with civil society, the business community, with the aim of arriving at a mutually acceptable outcome. So that's our government's position. We're not going to overrule a democratically elected council, because this is what we protested against while we were in opposition. So we would like the council, however, to engage with civil society and the business community and arrive at a solution. But it is for the two sides to reach that solution.
Ravin, your question.
Sir, if I may ask, you spoke just now about the coalition campaigning and pushing for local democracy.
Yes.
The coalition parties would have also campaigned against sole sourcing. Given the fact that this project did not go to tender, and it was approved by a coalition-controlled council, do you believe in any way that this is hypocritical, or the party may have gone back on its word?
No, I don't see any hypocrisy there. I have not double-guessed the nature of the contract. We do feel that the contract is burdensome, and we feel that there was simply not enough communication with the other partners and civil society, and we feel that was injurious to the character of the final contract. Yes, I believe that if a procedure had been followed in which there was wide advertising, it could have been there could have been a different outcome. But as I said, we have not double-guessed the work of the council, and it's a matter for the council to decide. I don't think that any law was broken, but at the same time, I feel that the approach of the city council could have been different. It could have been different.
Mr. President, the business community in Georgetown, that is, have been complaining of the negative impact this parking meter would have had on their business since its implementation. Do you think that a special arrangement should or could be in place for businesses per se with regards to the parking meters?
Let me say that the government of Guyana is not satisfied with the general provisions of the parking meter project. And the government engaged with the municipality to have another look at the project, to engage with civil society and the business community, with a view to arriving at an outcome which was acceptable to both sides. So that is as much as I can say. Yes, we feel that the rates are high. We feel that certain areas should have been exempt, certain categories of workers should have been exempt, for example, schools, at the rehabilitation center. So I'm asserting that the government is not fully satisfied with the project and has asked the municipality to revise it. But the government is not going to impose a solution on the municipality. That solution will come out of the engagement between the municipality and the civil society. So that's where we are. But we are not asking for the removal of the project, whether or not it had an impact on the business community. Every businessman, I presume, every citizen would complain about any form of taxation. Nobody likes being taxed, but how will the city run? That is a question that has to be answered. We have a strange situation in which one of the leading protesters, I would even say an instigator, is actually writing to the city council for waiver of taxes which are due. How will the city run? If you're saying there must be no parking meter project, but on the other hand, you're writing to the city for waiver of the taxes which are due. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the same person is leading protests. So we have hypocrisy there. Pay your taxes and let the city run properly, and we wouldn't have to resort to these measures.
Sir, you spoke about certain aspects of the contract that you probably don't agree with. You said it's burdensome and so. Is it safe to say then that if this was within your remit, you would not have approved a contract of this nature?
I don't like to speculate on these matters. What the government of Guyana is saying is that the project has been reviewed by the Ministry of Legal Affairs and Ministry of Finance. It has been discussed thoroughly at Cabinet, and we feel that the rates are burdensome, and we have asked formally the City Council to review the rates and review the general circumstances and conditions under which the project is being launched. That's much like the government definitely has spoken, and it is for the municipality, which we regard as an autonomous entity, to take the matter back to the drawing board and sit down with the other persons who are involved, particularly the business community and civil society. Look, this is a national capital. This is a national capital. It's not a private plantation. And we have done as much as the government could legitimately do to call on the parties to sit down and resolve this problem. It is not a government of Guyana problem. It's not a central government issue. But we have used our influence to bring matters back to the discussion table, the negotiation table. This matter has been a slow-burning fuse for several months, and we are aware. We have engaged the business community, we've engaged the City Council, and I'm very confident that those two parties can arrive at a solution which is acceptable and which does not call for street demonstrations.
Sir, moving away from the parking meters. In a few days, we will be hosting the 28th intersessional meeting of Caricom, Heads of Government. Previously on this program, you said that your intention as chairman of Caricom is to advance economic development of the region. My question is, what, in your view, are the areas of potential that could drive this kind of development that you spoke of?
Well, the Caribbean community was founded 44 years ago, largely as an economic grouping of mainly small island states and a few mainland states. And we have a large import bill, particularly in food. The level of manufacturing is very low, and we feel that a combination of the expertise and the capital that is available in the island states, particularly tourism, and combined with the resources of the larger mainland states like Belize, Guyana, and Suriname, we could have faster economic growth, and the people of the community could enjoy a better standard of living. So the question is a matter of combining the resources of all 15 member states to ensure that we have the fullest benefit from the single market. And at present, I don't think we're benefiting fully from that single market. There's still heavy penetration from major external manufacturers, and this penetration is undermining local manufacturing capabilities, and of course the very purpose for which the market should be established. So it's the economy that we're going to be focusing on, and as you know, a couple of days ago I was in Haiti. Haiti has a population of over 10 million, which is almost double the size of the population of the other member states. So I'm very confident that based on the decisions that are likely to arise at this intersessional, we'll be able to move along the road to the single market and economy much more quickly.
Thank you, sir. You brought up Haiti, though. Ian, you said when you were there in an interview, you said that Caricom is keen to support the economic revival of that country. Can you expand a little on that?
Well, Haiti has been very unfortunate because over the last decade or more, they have been hit by more natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes than any other Caribbean country. The loss of life has been horrendous, the damage to property. So I feel that if we all contributed, of course the donor community is contributing to Haiti's revival. Haiti has a very important role to play in the single market and economy. It is the single largest population in the entire community. So Haiti is vital.
Thank you, sir.
All right, sir, if we could look at constitutional reform. While in opposition, you would have advocated for presidential powers to be limited. This was even listed in the coalition's manifesto.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's in the manifesto.
The manifesto.
Yeah.
No, you said you, I thought you, but I advocated.
Do you still hold to this view that presidential powers should be?
Yes, yes. I think the coalition has an agreement that some of the immunities, could be reviewed in light of practice around the world. Is there a problem?
No, there isn't.
You haven't changed.
Mr. President, last year when you addressed the forum at the Critchlow Labour College, one of the things you said or promised is an inquiry into the more than 400 persons who lost their life in what you would call troubled times during the crime spree. Is that on the back burner, or is something you're still willing to pursue?
No, it's on the burner. It's neither front nor back, but getting evidence is very difficult. As you know, many of the so-called witnesses were themselves eliminated. I think the present Commissioner of Police, who was at the time the head of CID, in the case, I think it might have been the case of the assassination of Minister of Agriculture Sadio Sow, pointed out that every single witness had been killed, which is astonishing. So this is a problem that people are still around who were either participants or had been influenced by the troubles, and they're reluctant to give evidence. But we are working on it, and as you know, there are other concerns at present also. These concerns affect, fraud and financial malpractice. And although forensic audits are being conducted, you don't have the type of evidence that could be taken to court to get convictions. It's not that it's hearsay, it's just that you need more precise information. And when you're dealing with murder, when you're dealing with assassinations and executions, you're looking for identification, you're looking for, weapons, you're looking for the types of ammunition that were used. So it is still on the agenda. And I would like to get it over as quickly as possible because some of the relatives, would like to see justice done. But the availability of evidence has been a challenge to the security forces in this regard. And in many cases, no inquests were conducted. So it's a work in progress.
Mr. President, yesterday, Region 9 REO would have been charged with sexual assault.
Will have been charged? He has been charged.
Has been charged with sexual assault. Could you say what is government's policy in dealing with sexual predators in the public sector?
Government has one policy with dealing with the crime. That is, once the police have evidence, they go to the court, and we are not going to obstruct or interfere with the course of justice. So he has been charged, and the courts, the matter will take the normal course. The government's policy has always been that if you are accused of committing a crime, well, the criminal justice system will deal with you. We're not going to shield or protect anybody who's suspected of criminal behavior.
Mr. President, in May of this year, your government turns 2. It's been quite an eventful 18 months so far, but if I can ask you to put a grade on your government's performance so far in office, what grade would you use?
A grade. I think that's a good grade. We have done much in light of what we inherited. We inherited a public telecommunications sector in which there was a fiber optic cable there. Nobody talks about that. It's a cemetery. It's hundreds of millions of dollars wasted. We inherited a sugar industry with the Skeldon factory, which is underperforming. We inherited a criminal situation where hundreds of people are being killed. There have been no inquests, and up to now you can still see that many of the children who were 5 or 6 years old in 2000 and 2003 when the trouble started are now 19 and 20 in the mid-20s, and they're committing the same crimes they might have witnessed as children. We have been seeing cases in the courts in which billions of dollars are owed because of unsettled debts. So by the previous administration. So all of this mess we're trying to clean up. So I would say that the efforts we've made over the last 18 months have been phenomenal in terms of trying to make Guyana a law-governed country and to introduce due regularity into government's business. And don't forget that some of the persons who had been corrupted by that period of the Troubles, public servants, for example, members of the law enforcement agency are still around. And we are dealing with those problems on a daily basis. Some of the so-called administrative problems are really legacies of the previous administration. So I would say we're doing quite well, and the public, the Guyanese public, could look forward to having a much improved quality of governance by the time we come to the end of our first tour of duty. In the second tour of duty, I think you'll see faster movement once we've cleaned up the backlog of cases that we inherited from the PPP administration.
Sir, do you believe the government has been successful in attracting foreign direct investment? And if yes, could you say what are some of the indicators?
We could do better. We have re-engaged the Chinese and the Canadians, particularly in the extractive industry. The Brazilians are still in the extractive industry, the Russians are in the extractive industry. We feel that the settlement of the territorial question will be a significant factor in attracting persons into those areas. We have opened new windows in ecotourism, and this is a new field. We have not attracted major investors in that area, but I think when people see the prospects of a green state, they will be more likely to come in. You must bear in mind also that maybe over the last 3 years or so, there has been a downturn in the whole international economy. We know that China had problems. We know that some European countries had problems. And as a result of that, the demand for some of our commodities has been low. I mean, for example, sugar is high priced. I don't expect that we'll find new investors easily to go into sugar. Bauxite demand is very low. Timber demand is very low. Rice is very high priced. The rice that Guyana produces is high priced. So you wouldn't find investors going into those traditional sectors. And our emphasis has been to attract people to go into the new sectors, as I said, like ecotourism. And I think that is where the future of the economy will rest. But I would say that the success has been moderate, and once people see the prospects of Guyana going into those new fields, you'll see better results. But you can't expect to find new investors going into the old industries like bauxite and timber right now.
Sir, the government has, the education sector now, the government has launched its maths program through the Ministry of Education, which is intended to improve the pass rate at the common entrance level, because, you know, we've had a low pass rate, I think, last year. And so the focus now is placed on grade 6 students particularly. Would you agree with me, sir, that if the emphasis is being placed from the ground up, starting from grade 1, then that will better diagnose and solve the problem?
Oh, yes, I agree with you. We have launched what is really an emergency program. It's a sort of program for the emergency education reform, PEER, a program for emergency education reform. You're quite right, it is meant to deal with grade 6 alone, but the entire approach to mathematics has to be changed. And we cannot get results in the short term without dealing with the people who are going to be sitting exams within a few weeks' time. Now, what happened last year is that the method or the methodology for the exams was modified, and this led to a dramatic change or decline in the results. So my information, because Cabinet spent some time examining the problem, is that the present test is more analytical and relies less on memory. And I think that is what proved to be a setback for some of the students. So I agree with you that we've got to look at the way those 4 subjects that are taken at the National Grade 6 Assessment Test, all 4 have to be re-examined to ensure that children are prepared to reason rather than just memorize. I think that is the heart of the problem. But the emergency program is in effect, and I hope that we get better results at this year's tests.
Mr. President, if I can ask, since we're on the education sector, do you believe the 14% VAT on educational services is justified?
Well, the general approach of the government is to progressively reduce the value-added tax. And this year, as you know, we had some challenges, and raising of the revenue had to be done. And I am very confident that the next budget will see a reduction in that tax.
Mr. President, still on VAT, even though the government has moved to reduce VAT from 16% to 14% this year, the VAT base really has been widened, if I can say that, and this has not been getting the best review from the populace. Sir, could we see the government going back to the table pertaining to the widening of the VAT base?
Well, this is what I told Ravin. Yes, I see the government reducing VAT. Even from 14%, we will go, I don't want to mention figures now, but our intention is to reduce VAT in the next budget too. So we'll reduce the amount of items and reduce the rate at which those items are charged. But I don't want to make a prediction now, because the government spending is based on its earning.
I'm still in education, Mr. President. The criteria for promotions for teachers have been there forever, the current criteria. Is it something the government is, or your government is committed of changing that criteria for teachers to be promoted? Because the current structure has been there like all the time.
I cannot give you a precise answer now. These matters arise out of discussion with the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education, and I don't want to predict the outcome of those discussions. We had, for example, suggestions that the age of retirement for teachers should be increased, but when we discussed it with some teachers, they said, no, they want to go to 55. Some people want to go to 60. I am prepared to allow teachers to remain till 65, but these are not impositions the government should make. And I would prefer to leave this discussion between the ministry and the union. So we want the teachers to be happy in their jobs, but we feel the teachers can serve longer, and the criteria could be revised, yes.
Sir, coming back to local government election, we spoke of the municipality and so. After a year of local government election being held, after more than 20 years, sorry, are you satisfied with development at the municipal level?
No, I think that we could have moved a lot more quickly at the NDC level. And I'm very pleased with the performance of the mayors. But some things are happening in the regions which have not contributed much to the stabilization of local democracy. For example, you would recall that a few weeks ago, the Ministry of Communities held a conference, and some of the persons who were in municipalities and regions controlled by the opposition party just boycotted it. There's no way to run the region or to run a municipality. So once you have that type of behavior, it is difficult for me to say I'm satisfied. What we're seeing is resistance on purely political grounds. There's no justification for regional chairmen and members of the NDCs not showing up at these conferences. I've gone to some regions and the ministers, the regional chairman would never even come to say, hello, how are you doing, Mr. President? So there's a sort of civil war going on that's being conducted by the opposition. And that is what is undermining the local government system. It's not you can't make local government work when you have a significant partner or a significant member of the team, that is the opposition party, sabotaging the government and sabotaging the system at every turn. That's the problem, sabotage.
Still on the education sector, Mr. President, can you say when will talks on the financial aspects of GTU salary proposal begin? And can you say, too, whether it will be retroactive given it's a 2016 proposal?
No, I'm not micromanaging the Ministry of Education, but I don't think the talks were discontinued. I think the ministry is engaged with the union, and I would assume that the talks are still going on. I don't know if it's active or if it's dormant for the time being, but to my knowledge, they were never discontinued. But as I said, once the minister concludes those talks, he'll bring the proposals to Cabinet, and based on his recommendation, Cabinet will make a decision. That's how it works.
We have time for one final question.
I think we can ask this to Mr. President. Can you say whether talks with the Guyana Public Service Union and the government are continuing as well? Because there was a halt last year end. So can you say whether they have resumed talks?
The Guyana Public Service Union has made some proposals, and the government, I do not believe that for the year 2017, those talks have resumed actively. But we do hope that they will be concluded this year. Yeah. I have to check on that, but as far as I'm concerned, I made a public statement that the talks have not been discontinued, and there are some new issues which the GPSU has got to consider. Some what we call non-salary benefits.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ravin and Royden. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Do join us again.